Really excited about the conversation today. I jumped into crypto back in 2013 when we did the Bitcoin experiment at MIT.
Thank you so much. Excellent. And Victor?
Hi, folks. Victor Boyan. Been in crypto since 2017. Spent a good number of those years, last 5 years, working on protocols, so layer ones, layer twos, bridges, oracles, DeFi. So I spent a lot of time in the protocol space, and have been in the Lightning ecosystem since 2019 when I helped organize the Lightning Summit with Elizabeth Stark and the crew.
Awesome. Thank you so much, and thank you for joining us. I think we have Hannah. Is that you?
Yeah, hi. Thanks
Perfect.
for having us. I'm Hannah. I am a technical program manager at Coinbase, and I kind of got into crypto. I guess I'm a crypto noob when it comes in context to the rest of the crew here. I got involved in 2021, and I'm primarily involved in blockchain infrastructure and how we can scale it at Coinbase.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. And Kevin, I think you were the last one here.
I think it's not showing me as a speaker. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, yes.
Okay, perfect. So I'm Kevin. I'm the CTO at LightSpark, one of the co-founders. Been in the payments and blockchain world for quite a long time now, working on payments at Facebook for quite a while and working on core blockchain infrastructure on DM, and now working on LightSpark.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So as you just heard, we do have a pretty incredible group with us today. Let's dive in with some questions. So let me throw this over to the Coinbase team. So why did Coinbase choose to implement Lightning using LightSpark as a partner?
All right, great question. So we started looking at Lightning support late last year, probably around September, I think. And there were a couple of things that we were considering when deciding how to do the integration. The first thing was just understanding, like, hey, is there a DIY approach here, or is there an opportunity to use a provider for some or part of Lightning service support? And one of the things that we realized pretty quickly as a team is that Lightning is fairly different from layer twos on Ethereum, for example, where there's a pretty significant portion of the operation of Lightning that is related to optimization, whether it's liquidity management or doing stuff like rebalancing channels or like managing payment success rates and things of that nature. And so when we saw this problem, there's two ways to kind of go about it. One way is to try to solve it yourself and build all your own technology and kind of do the the finagling and optimization and all that stuff. And the other was to use a partner that specializes in it. And so one of the nice things about LightSpark, and we talked to all the different the client teams and the vendor teams and partner teams and all these other folks. But one of the really nice things about LightSpark is that they enable Coinbase to focus on what we are really good at, which is protecting our users' funds and maintaining custody and providing a great user experience, while at the same time leveraging LightSpark for the pieces that they are excellent at and built a world-class business in, which is everything around the management of the Lightning network. And so it was a great partnership from that perspective, and they've been wonderful to work with.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. And was there a significant amount of requests coming in for Coinbase customers to start using Lightning? Were a lot of people asking?
So, Lightning is one of those things where, we've had a number of asks come in over the last few years, and Coinbase has been looking at Lightning support for quite a long time now. I wouldn't say that it was like, hey, all of a sudden we had this deluge of requests that this is exactly the moment that, we need to add support for Lightning is because everybody's requesting it all at the same time. It wasn't like that. But I think that, people have been excited about using Lightning for a long time. Brian Armstrong has been excited about Lightning for a long time, and so has the rest of the Coinbase team. I think one of the ways that we looked at it is yes, people want this. But the other part was that it was really the right time to add Lightning support and the time that we did it. Because when you look at the previous bear market, a lot of ecosystems have shrunk during that previous bear market. Obviously, as users have slowed down or left or whatever it is, Lightning is one of the only things that grew and grew really significantly. And so it has this amazing period of growth. It's continuing to grow right now. And at the same time, when we started adding support, fees on Bitcoin were still fairly low. There wasn't this immediate need of just hey, Lightning is needed this exact moment. But we knew that the bull market was coming. We knew that we had availability. And so, combining all these things, we're like, okay, now is the perfect time to add Lightning support.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Let me throw a question over to the team from LightSpark. So Kevin or Christian, LightSpark makes it easier for Coinbase to implement Lightning. Can you talk about a little from a technical perspective why this is the case?
Yeah, so there are actually a lot of challenges in implementing Lightning. And when we first started LightSpark, we were actually really curious. We went around, we talked to a bunch of companies in the Bitcoin and crypto spaces and tried to understand why they hadn't really implemented Lightning. And as we went around, it was a really common answer that it was just too complex. To do just running a Lightning node is one thing, but to actually do it at an enterprise grade level is vastly different. And there are a lot of problems that kind of come into that. So Lightning itself is more of like a pairwise graph where you have a one-to-one connection and then it forms a large graph of this, which ends up being a vastly different concept than what you typically experience on an L1. So you have a lot of problems like who do you connect to? How do you get inbound liquidity? Um, how do you rebalance your channels? How do you actually route transactions? Even securing funds is different than it is on an L1. So what we do at LightSpark is we try to kind of wrap all that in a way that makes it very easy to actually do and kind of abstracts away all that complexity. You never have to worry about inbound liquidity. You just kind of magically get this inbound liquidity whenever you need it at the moment that you need it. We have smart routing where we have AI and machine learning to really understand the entire Lightning graph, be able to effectively be the Google Maps of Lightning, where we can tell you where there are roadblocks, tell you where there are expensive toll roads, where there are accidents and roads are closed, really help you route transactions extremely successfully and make it the most efficient usage of your funds. So there's a lot of things that we wrap up there to make it so that you can actually do Lightning effectively. And that's something that really takes a full-time dedicated team to do. And that's not something that other companies can necessarily devote full-time teams towards. And that's something at LightSpark we have our only focus to make Lightning super effective and to work well.
Very cool. Thank you so much. Christian, anything to add to that? And also sort of maybe specifically touching on some other things that differentiate LightSpark from other LSPs?
Yes, I mean, some LSPs offer a small subset of what we offer, but we don't really consider ourselves an LSP. We're trying to solve a fundamentally different problem. In the early days of Lightning, people look for help running a node, rebalancing channels, looking at liquidity, and that's what LSPs have historically focused on. But once you start thinking of Lightning as something with a lot more potential, as something that can really drive payments at scale, you immediately face a completely different set of problems. And you'll come to those problems with also very different expectations. You start comparing this to state-of-the-art payments experiences like Tap to Pay, Apple Pay, or imagine Pix in Brazil, which is a real-time payment system that has been doing a lot of progress on how consumers and businesses experience payments. And once you do that, you really have to kind of start from scratch. So yes, with LightSpark Connect, we really connect you to the network, and we make sure that your onboarding onto Lightning is really seamless and easy. Yes, you get our customers obsessed support throughout the way, and you get to experience these beautiful dashboards that our amazing design team has put together. You get to build on SDKs that our engineers are making sure that you really enjoy and love building on. But we also have to ensure that once you start using that product, it just works seamlessly. And that's a very high bar in crypto today. I think there's a bar for what people expect from crypto payments, and that's what they expect from general payments. And we've been focusing heavily on closing the gap between crypto and state-of-the-art payment systems. That's, for example, and Kevin was already hinting at this, LightSpark Predict, our AI ML-based service comes into the picture. We want to make sure that when you use our services, they're always on, they're fast, they're capital efficient. And so when you use Lightning, the experience needs to be kind of magical. You just try to pay someone, it's fast, it's cheap, it happens every time reliably. And the costs need to be low. So one of the early things we invested a lot of time and resources on is like making sure that we can scale Lightning over time and we can really drive costs down. because we do believe that Lightning will become, the open protocol for money movement on the internet. And for that to be true, Lightning needs to be not only magical and always reliable and performant, but also really, really dirt cheap. So that's kind of how we're different from LSPs, and how we're thinking about the payment experience on Lightning as much broader than just Bitcoin money movement.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Christian. I appreciate it. I wanted to throw a question over to Hannah, if she doesn't mind. What has been, are a lot of Coinbase users now using Lightning to withdraw their funds from Coinbase? Are you seeing a lot of uptake for the product?
We are seeing some uptake for the product. We're not sharing any specific data or information regarding our metrics and activity right now. But we are very excited to be able to give our users access to faster and cheaper Bitcoin transactions.
Awesome. Another big question I had, and I'll throw this back over to the LightSpark team. So LightSpark Lightning is a global payments network, and LightSpark helps to facilitate this. How does LightSpark remain in compliance globally? There's obviously a lot of laws all over the world to take into account. How does this work?
Yeah, so we carefully review all of our operations and our tech architecture. From the moment Kevin and team really come up with new ideas for improving it, both in the United States as well as in any other country we offer services in. As you all know, the legal and regulatory landscape around crypto is evolving very, very rapidly. So we have an entire team that keep tracks of all those developments and really make sure that we're careful and thoughtful in how we build our services and how we extend these open source protocols to make sure that our customers can always rely on them, including the ones like Coinbase that are regulated financial institutions. The bar is very high, right? So, and we had often had to innovate to really close the gap between, again, what people accept from crypto rails and what a modern payment experience would be, also from a regulatory and compliance perspective.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Kevin, did you have something to add to that?
No, I didn't.
Okay, I just saw your mic on. Okay. Very, very cool. So we just pinned it up in the Nest. I recently sat down with David Marcus, the CEO of and one of the co-founders of LightSpark, and I was genuinely taken back at how much of a Bitcoin believer he is, and how much he believes that Lightning will be the most popular payment network in the world. I was kind of curious, is the team at Coinbase just as on board? Brian Armstrong, everybody there, is Coinbase thinking along the same lines that Bitcoin will be the neutral settlement layer for the world and Lightning the most popular payment network in the world?
So I think it's a hard question to answer, because I think that when you look at Lightning traction to date, so I did this analysis, I think last year. So I believe I used the River report, if I remember correctly. So based on like their calculations and kind of like the estimates around, okay, how much Bitcoin is moving through a Lightning network, the total volume of Bitcoin moving through a Lightning network was, I believe at the time, less than the stablecoin volume on Ethereum in a single day. So it's one of those things where, like, we're super excited about Lightning. We're extremely excited about Bitcoin. I've always done our best to support Bitcoin. And we want Bitcoin to succeed in the world, but we also want to be like thoughtful in saying that, hey, like Lightning right now is something that's growing very fast. Like we're super excited to support and pour fuel on the fire. It's not a leading contender at this time based on its current traction. However, like we're doing what we can to support it. We're super excited to bring it to our users based on the way that our users use it, and like based on requests that we come in, and traction and so on. It is on the table to consider adding Lightning to other products where it makes sense. There is no roadmap to do it at this time until we actually see that data and we see that traction. But we are very excited about Lightning and super excited for what comes to Lightning over the next few years.
Yeah, do you mind if I ask a follow-up question there, Victor? Is that all right?
Of course.
Yeah, so I'm curious, I've had a lot of conversations with people in the space about this. A lot of people are talking about the next wave of Bitcoin adoption being driven by sort of utility, like, having the right reason to use Bitcoin in whatever app, and that app should have Lightning in it, and et cetera. What do you think will sort of change that dynamic? Like you just said, you saw a lot more stablecoin transactions over Ethereum than you did, Bitcoin over Lightning. Looking ahead, maybe within the next 5 to 10 years, do you see that dynamic shifting or not so much?
It's that's such a hard question. I'll give you like an answer, but it's also a little bit of a non-answer, which is just honest take that I don't know. when I look at Bitcoin, I think it's the most important asset in crypto by far. When I think about stable coins, and I'm just like, okay, once you have stable coins on Lightning, for example, if you have taproot assets, like does that change the dynamic where now everybody's going to use stable coins on Lightning? I think in some places that the answer to that can be yes. In some places the answer to that can be no. I think that if you look at the most kind of like active users of stablecoins, they fall into roughly two buckets. There's all the folks around DeFi and leverage and B2B payments, like all the kind of like big ticket item stuff. And then there's a small ticket item stuff, which are like we've done a lot of research in Nigeria and Argentina and like a bunch of these other places where people aren't using stablecoins for on-chain stuff. They're really using it for payments and for savings and for remittance and all that stuff. And so looking at that, right, like will the first cohort predominantly use stablecoins on Bitcoin? Well, it really depends. We'll see kind of like how BitVM plays out. We'll see how the Bitcoin L2s play out. We'll see how these compare over time to other ecosystems, from a technology and adoption perspective. And I think it's too early to tell. And Lightning obviously is on that list. In terms of the second focus, which is on the smaller users that use it predominantly for payments and savings and all that stuff. A lot of these folks like use Bitcoin today. A lot of them use stablecoins. If the Bitcoin ecosystem is able to create like really phenomenal experience that are non-custodial, where people can use Bitcoin and stablecoins in the same environments in very, very simple ways with very, very low fees, I think that's going to be something that is an extremely attractive proposition to people all over the world. So it's really up to the Bitcoin community to create these really great experiences, and I'm excited to see how it plays out.
Thank you so
much. Something interesting, just to add to that, something interesting that we've been observing is actually that, especially when you look outside of the US, the interest and growth around Lightning is quite something. So the reality of the landscape right now is that, if you look at converting from Bitcoin to fiat, that is often cheaper and more cost effective as an off-ramp than going through stablecoins. So stablecoins, of course, are very promising, but the reality of it is that they just don't have the global liquidity that Bitcoin has. And so you shouldn't just think of Lightning as a way to move Bitcoin. One of the things that we've been investing a lot of cycles on is, can we use Lightning and kind of extensions of it to ensure that you can move value globally at a low cost between any currency or any crypto in real time with final settlement? It's a set of extensions that we call universal money addresses. It's an open source protocol. And that's quite interesting because to some extent, we're so early in crypto and people want to be able to spend often what they receive, whether it's a payout on a creator platform or a remittance. And stablecoins still don't have, the availability where you can just go and buy something at a store. And so if you're looking for fiat, then a flow that can start with, say dollars and be delivered in Mexican pesos or Argentinian pesos or Naira is one that Lightning is really well positioned to deliver on because Bitcoin has regulatory clarity, right? So compared to many of these other networks, it has an advantage, and it also has global liquidity. A lot of people are interested in Bitcoin for investment, and we've seen all the progress now, of course, with ETFs, and that global liquidity is really perfect for really creating almost like a global network where people can transact any currency, any crypto in real time without friction.
Much appreciated, Christian. And you also appreciate that a lot. Great explanation. And also, you did bring up universal money addresses, Uma. I know that this is sort of a big component. It's a big part of. It's a technology that LightSpark uses. So I was wondering if yourself or if Kevin could comment a little bit more on how LightSpark will employ the UMAs or universal money addresses.
Yeah, so we are actually really feeling like UMA is really the way to move money from any currency to any other currency. And what we want to do is make it so that you can transact at the lowest possible cost with instant settlement on an open network. We really believe that open networks are the future. We're trying to move from the payment stack that largely hasn't really been updated since the 60s and 70s and bring that into the internet age where you can move money like you move data packets on the internet today. And we think that UMA is actually the way to do that. We think that Lightning and Bitcoin have unique properties that really set it apart. And if we can kind of be able to move the Bitcoin that we all know and love, and at the same time be able to extend it to be able any currency to any other currency, we think that's a really powerful way to actually move money.
Amazing. And to bring it back to one other point, Christian, that you made, you've talked about running fiat over Lightning. Do you see this as a way to also transfer other assets? So, for example, like, I don't know, the first thing that came to mind is maybe stocks in something, or something, real world assets that get tokenized. Do you see Lightning doing something like this, or not so much?
I think tokenization is inevitable, and I think people are increasingly realizing that the network effects and growth of Bitcoin is hard to ignore. So there's good reasons why people haven't done that on Bitcoin before. Bitcoin is more limited, it's difficult to build on, but we're witnessing truly a Bitcoin renaissance between everything happening across ordinals, BRC20s, runes, and you name it. A lot of people are experimenting on how to make L2s on Bitcoin truly innovative and performant. So I think you'll see that it's happening already organically. We're actually focused on really solving payment problems, and so on that, for many people, they may need to move money across borders. They may want to pay a supplier, and Bitcoin might be too early for them. But what's magical about that is that they might be able, again, to send, starting with dollars and the receiver receiving Mexican pesos over Bitcoin, real time, 24/7, regardless of banking hours. That's an experience that doesn't exist today. We've seen lots and lots of progress domestically on payment systems. Think about Pix in Brazil, really state of the art, UPI in India, maybe eventually FedNow in the US as it gains more traction and adoption. But there's no equivalent when you think of across countries, and it's very difficult for countries to export their payment systems because, of course, it's something that domestic regulators want to control. Bitcoin is perfectly placed to be that connector, right? So if I want to move value on a Friday in London after the banking hours to anywhere else around the globe with final settlement, no counterparty risk, guess what? I mean, you have a network that's been running now for more than 10 years that works 24/7, is highly decentralized and reliable, and that network is Bitcoin. It is also the only network that people can join and participate in without having to worry about kind of any other sort of like regulatory questions about the asset and what you're dealing with.
Much appreciated. And I think that a lot of us probably sitting in this space understand all of this, share the sentiment that it has all these amazing qualities. So I'm also curious when it comes to adoption. Maybe Victor, you're the best person to throw this back to. Is the hurdle at this point just psychological, or is it education? Is it psychological? Is it just people still thinking Bitcoin is nothing more than a scam, so I'm not going to use it, I'll use stable coins instead? Given that it seems like we're making a lot of amazing technological advances, but the uptake just isn't, as you mentioned, Victor, it just isn't sort of there when it comes to using Bitcoin as a medium of exchange. I'll pose it to Victor, but please, anyone, feel free to chime in. What does feel like the most major hurdle at this point? Is it psychological? Is it something else?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great question. I wouldn't say that it's I don't know that I'd say it's psychological, but I would focus it on kind of like user bases, in that, like, ultimately what you want to drive is like real world utility, right? And from a payments perspective, the way that you get people to want to pay with the money is if they think that the money is not going to be like a rapidly appreciating asset. And so the most bullish thing that we can do for Bitcoin, right, like as an industry, is like to make Bitcoin worth more, so that people's expectations around its future increases in price will start to diminish, and people are like, okay, I don't mind actually parting with this asset and actually using it for payments, because I don't think that it's going to 2x in the next year. Like, it'll go up like 10% or whatever it is, and that's fine. Like, I can just I can part with it now because I want to buy this house or whatever it is that is important to me. And so I think it's really bullish when the price of Bitcoin rises, because it also like makes it so that people are more willing to spend with it. I think barring that, because that is a thing that kind of works on its own path, and nobody can really influence it, or at least not anybody on this call. Barring that, the thing that we can do is create great experiences for people. They're not just buying and sending, selling, whatever Bitcoin. And to me, that comes down to stablecoins, applications, NFTs, like et cetera, et cetera. And when you look at it from that perspective, like, the Bitcoin community is going through a renaissance right now, which I'm actually very excited about. I know some people aren't, but I definitely am. Because like what you want to do is you want to create this like builder ecosystem that prioritizes users, prioritizes incredible experiences, prioritizes building the things that people want. And I think that the Bitcoin community has criticized other communities for doing some or all of these things in various ways in the past. And so I think there's a little bit of a growth opportunity of just like, hey, how does the Bitcoin community create these experiences that users want in a way that is aligned with Bitcoin community values, but still delivers on that promise to users of giving them a great time. So from that perspective, it's just like you got to build stuff that people want. And so it's not a psychological thing. It's just like, the Bitcoin community doesn't have that muscle for many of the things outside of the core Bitcoin specific promise. You know what I mean?
Understood 100%. I was curious, Hannah, if you had any thoughts on that as well. Always love speaking with technical people about what sorts of technology they think will sort of drive adoption, what sorts of utility will be created where it will just make Bitcoin something that people just have to use. They won't need to get a lesson in Austrian economics or be orange pilled or something like that. Do you see anything coming down the pipeline, or do you envision anything that will encourage more people to use it just based on, hey, I want to do this thing and this is the use case and I have to use Bitcoin to do it?
Yeah, so I think in terms of exchanging Bitcoin itself, Victor kind of nailed it around like right now, I think a lot of people view it as a value store. So people don't want to spend it. In terms of the technology, one of the things that we kind of discovered working through onboarding Lightning really is kind of some of the friction in the user experience right now. You have to create an invoice, you have to send it over to someone who's going to send you funds. There are a lot of steps that this takes, and I think LightSpark is definitely like leading the charge with UMA and really trying to push like much simpler payments. So I think the technology is starting to emerge, but I really think right now it's solving those user experiences, on ramps and off ramps. It really requires something much more simple than kind of the current user flows that we're seeing. And I think we're starting to see those emerge. So it'll be really exciting to see how that evolves in the next year.
Very, very cool. And any thoughts back over to the LightSpark team? And thank you, Hannah, much appreciated. Any thoughts from the LightSpark team on how that might happen? I think that, I'm super fascinated in what the role that LightSpark will play moving forward. I sat down, as I said, and I spoke with David Marcus, and I was genuinely taken back at just, how much of a Bitcoin believer he is. And, but at the same time, he has all of this information about what he did with Facebook, with messaging, and what he did at PayPal as the former president of PayPal. He has all of this information about technology, human behavior. Kicking it over to the LightSpark, to Kevin and Christian, your thoughts on what's going to drive this? What sorts of utility might drive greater adoption?
Yes, and honestly, I couldn't have said it better than Hannah. And this is why we're investing a lot on universal money addresses. We think that, look, the UI UX experience and the onboarding for consumers is still too hard in crypto, right? So we come from years and years of serving people within the industry. But as we expand that circle and we try to solve problems for millions and then billions of people, we need to really work on something that's simple to use and delivers immediate value. So we do believe that if you look around, first of all, people want to move money cross border at a low fee, fiat to fiat, and then eventually maybe they will be ready also for using Bitcoin more directly. But Bitcoin in the background as a global settlement asset can deliver massive value. Second, you have all these digital platforms, whether it's in the creator economy, marketplaces, ride sharing, you name it, that move millions and millions of dollars every day across borders, from very small payments, tipping, unlocking digital content, to much larger ones. And we can do it much better on digital rails. So I think that's the way that people are going to experience crypto for the first time. Sometimes it will be in the background. They won't even know that when they're sending money to their loved ones abroad, it's happening in real time over Bitcoin. And then eventually we'll build from there. But it all comes from delivering delightful experiences that will wow consumers and businesses alike.
Sincerely appreciated. And I think I like how I love hearing technical people talk about how they create magical experiences. I think that that's really important. We were on a call earlier today, Shinobi and I, and Shinobi said something along the lines of like, Lightning was designed without really thinking too much about the end product in mind or the end user in mind. So we really do need people like you, Christian, and you, Kevin, designing things like LightSpark and working on this to make it easier for people to use. I think that that's one of the big things that has been missing in this process of Bitcoin adoption or lack thereof because of this. Kevin, did you have anything to add to what Christian said?
No, I mean, in general, I think that the focus on crypto has been more on the core infrastructure side and less on the UX side, and really making it into a delightful experience where there are real use cases that make people actually want to use their crypto asset, whether that's Bitcoin or any other asset. And I think that's really where we're trying to focus, is make it so there are real use cases that incentivize people to use it for an actual purpose rather than just holding the asset. And that's where UMA comes in. That's where a lot of what we're doing in general, LightSpark comes in, really just trying to make it into something that's effective. And Coinbase has really kind of made that into something that's real. And I think having an amazing partner like Coinbase really helps us be able to grow the network and make it into something that's more effective.
Much appreciated. Awesome. I know we had a bit of a time constraint today and we're running a little bit over. I think we just had a half hour scheduled. So I just simply want to open the floor to each of the four speakers just to offer any final thoughts and also, just any sort of information, things to keep in mind, ways that they might be able to engage with the products that you're offering. Please feel free to let us know what's on your mind. We'll start with you, Christian, if that's all right.
Yeah, so all I'll say is that Coinbase has been a player that's been innovating in the crypto space for more than a decade, and the fact that they're now on Lightning is a really important moment. So I'm truly excited to see where they go next with all of this, and we love to support them in their growth on the network.
Amazing, much appreciated. Let's throw it over to someone from Coinbase then. Victor, any thoughts? Closing thoughts?
Yeah. The only thing I'd love to say is, Coinbase really cares about Bitcoin. We want Bitcoin to succeed. It's incredibly important to, many of us here, it's incredibly important to Brian Armstrong. And so as the community sees opportunities for Coinbase to do more, whether it's, if there's like a Bitcoin L2 to support, or if there's like some other change in there he's making that we should adopt or whatever it is, please reach out to us. Please be vocal. My DMs are open. You can always reach out to me. And so we do our very best to prioritize that support, as much and as soon as we can. And so the more that we can do to help Bitcoin, the better. So thank you, everybody, for having us.
Amazing. Thank you, Victor. Much appreciated. Hannah?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited to have been a part of the Lightning project and the LightSpark and Lightning integration. As Kevin mentioned, the last, several years have really been focused on the infrastructure and less on the user experience. So, the sooner we nail the user experience, the sooner we can kind of, Coinbase, one of Coinbase's core mission is increasing economic freedom. And the sooner that we make all of these things more accessible to a broader audience, the faster we'll be able to meet that mission. And it's very exciting to be a part of.
Awesome. And thank you for your work in helping to do that. Kevin, over to you.
Yeah, I think at LightSpark, we really think this is just the beginning, and we are really excited to engage with developers, help to really make Bitcoin and Lightning the foundational platform for moving money in the future. And being able to work with the Coinbase team has really been a blessing. They are an amazing team. We've really enjoyed the experience, and big shout out to Victor and Hannah for driving that team. And we're really glad that we've had a chance to work together and hope to continue that relationship.
Awesome. Well, much appreciated. I have to say, just thank you personally. This was an absolute pleasure and a treat to hear from such prominent voices in the space. I really admire what you guys are working on, especially user interface, making it easier for people to engage with these protocols, making it more usable, driving Bitcoin adoption through utility. I think that this is really a big part of the equation at this point as we move into, whereas we're here at the beginning of the fifth Bitcoin epoch. A sincere thanks to all of you for your time, for joining us here today. Thank you for Bitcoin Magazine for hosting here. Also, I didn't introduce myself in the beginning. I'm the business correspondent for Bitcoin Magazine. Please feel free to reach out to me. You could shoot me a DM. Please feel free to reach out or contact me, ping me or whatever. If you're working on cool and interesting products and that are related to Bitcoin. Sincere thanks to all the listeners. Thank you to all of our participants today, and we will be in touch. Thank you, everybody, again.
Thank you.
Thanks,
you.
guys.
Take it easy, guys.